Joined now by Philip Stinson in Ohio. He's a criminologist and former police officer. Philip, as we learn more about what the shooter amassed in terms of weapons, what's your takeaway?
Well, I think what we find here is that we have somebody who obviously had a plan. He was able to acquire a large number of weapons, complicated weapons, a large amount of ammunition. He was able to take them up to the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel, and he was able to execute a plan that was designed to kill as many people packed as densely closely together in a large concert venue as possible. So I think what the days ahead are going to show us is that this is somebody who absolutely had a plan. I think law enforcement will be able to determine what his motive was. I think it's unusual in a case like this that there would be no story left behind. So I think we're gonna find out a lot more. I don't know that we're going to be able to call this domestic terrorism. What we are going to be able to determine, though, is that this was an angry man. He was probably mentally ill, but he had a plan and he had a purpose and a motive that was very specific. And I think it's up to law enforcement at this point to figure it out. What's unusual here is that we have somebody who's a little bit older than we would expect. No known criminal record, no military background, and at this time we have no information that he was a member of any hate organization. So it seems that at first glance it seems a bit unusual, but I think as the days go on this week, we're going to learn a lot about his motive and exactly what he was up to.
You have a course at Bowling Green. It's called Making a Murderer. What makes a mass murderer? Because as you said, he doesn't fit the mold. This is a guy who's described as a multimillionaire. He's older. It's kind of a unique case in many respects, isn't it?
Well, I think we're going to learn more in the days ahead. I think that this was somebody who was very angry. I think that this was a plan that he had for a long period of time, and I think we're going to find in the next few hours probably somebody's going to come forward with some information that he had talked to them about something. It's just it seems unfathomable that he would have left no trail at all. So yeah, he made it to the age of 64, but you know what? We might find that he's been involved in violent crimes before. We just don't know at this point. But to think that he got to the age of 64, a man of considerable wealth apparently, without any violent background, it does seem hard to fathom, and I think we're going to find that's probably not the case.
We also know that he had ammonium nitrate, which Timothy McVeigh used to create a bomb to blow up the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma back in 1995. So this could have been much worse. And you alluded to domestic terrorist. We don't consider Timothy McVeigh a mass murderer. We call him a homegrown domestic terrorist. Should we be doing the same with Matt Paddock?
Well, we're going to know, I think, as the investigation goes on. I think law enforcement needs to be very careful. Apparently, he owns several properties, and they're executing search warrants, as I understand, today and over the next few days. And law enforcement's going to have to be very careful to make sure that these properties weren't booby-trapped, that there's not more carnage to come.
What's the toughest part for law enforcement at this stage?
Well, I think there's a variety of difficult things. This is something that would be very difficult for law enforcement to plan for. Obviously, the Secret Service plans for things where they're looking for shooters from high vantage point, but this was caught everyone completely off guard, and by all accounts, law enforcement so far has done a good thing. I think they've got a very complicated crime scene that they have to fully process in Las Vegas. I think that the crime scene is actually going to take them to other venues and different locations. It's going to be a very slow, methodical process to conduct this investigation. It's a lot of steps that are involved in an investigation like this, involving law enforcement officers from many agencies, both federal, state, and local.
Do you think he was casing places in Las Vegas? The reason I ask that is you look at the location, it looks as though he shot from two different locales. He broke out windows in two different spots. It looked like the perfect perch to inflict so much damage. Do you think he was methodical in where he decided to actually execute this shooting?
Absolutely. This wasn't something that was planned over just a day or even just a few days. This was something where he planned out the location, he planned out the target, and it was very, very well planned. I think he had been to Mandalay Bay many times. He was apparently someone who was a known gambler who frequented that place, but he also made sure that he had a vantage point from the 32nd floor to be able to shoot where he wanted to shoot. He also brought with him the tools so that he could break out the windows in the two hotel rooms. So this was somebody who had a great deal of planning involved. This was a very, very well-planned attack.
Philip Stinson joining us from Ohio. Thanks so much for your observations, your analysis.